Welcome to the British Online School podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button. And if you like what you hear, also hit the like button. And why not chuck a comment in as well if you're enjoying something or would like to have your say on something we discussed today. And talking about today, we are going to be discussing education and football with Reading's central midfielder, John Swift. So thank you so much for joining us today, John Swift.
That's all right, no problem.
So if we can start off by really sort of stating the obvious, at the moment, you're living like the dream of every schoolboy at the moment who plays for their school, plays for their Saturday or Sunday league team by being a professional footballer. When did you know this was going to be your career and you sort of hit it?
I say I know, but I feel like you never really do know. I think it's sort of just, you believe that one day you're going to be a professional footballer. And then when the time comes when you actually sign your first ever professional contract, I think that's when it really hits you. And I think you can only sign a professional contract just as you leave school. So the whole way through school, I think I started playing football when I was like 6. So I've played for years, and I just always believed that football was going to be what I was going to do. And I think during school, during literally everything away from school, I was always playing football. So I think when the time came about, when I was probably 12, 13, when it was starting to get really serious, I was training 2-3 times a week, games on the Saturday, and the Sunday became really, really important, and I had to do really well. So I think by the time I eventually was offered a professional contract, I think I was probably like 15 or 16. That's when it sort of really hit me, and I was like, well, I'm leaving school now, I'm going into professional football. And then from then, just sort of taking everything in my stride and try to do as well as I can.
So for all those budding footballers then who are listening to you, and obviously he's saying that you've been playing since 6 years old, what is it like being a professional footballer? Because I'm sure in their heads, and I've heard people say it, oh yeah, we get to train, we get to play, we get paid lots of money, but there's got to be more to it than that. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many positive things that come with it. Technically, you are sort of doing what you love doing. So every day I wake up, I'm looking forward to going in and training. I'm looking forward to going to the gym and getting better, and watching my games back on the Saturday and seeing what I can do well. So there's loads of positives obviously from it, but there's also when things aren't going so well that people don't really see. And I mean, stuff comes out in the media, of course, with like mental health and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't see. When you're not getting in the team, or you move to a new team in a new area with your whole family, and you don't play. I mean, there's so many players that it's happened to, that you sort of just think, well, if you're not playing, move somewhere else. When it's easy to say that from the outside, but if you've moved all your family, in worst cases to another country or something like that, then it does become quite hard. But yeah, like I said, like there's so many positives to it, that if you are a young kid and you do want to be a professional footballer, I mean, talent's not enough, sorry. So you can be unbelievable, but then when it comes down to actually trying to get better, you can always get better. There's no limit to where you can stop. And I just think if I could tell myself now when I was, I'd say 16, I'd tell myself so much to do differently. Yeah, I just think if young lads are out there trying to become professional footballers now, then you've got to sort of get it into your head that you need to work hard as well as your natural ability.
Oh, fair. But if we can touch on that, because we take obviously mental health and physical health quite seriously. Obviously, being an online school, there's lots of possible side effects that could happen without going into school. But from when you started with Portsmouth back in 2005 in their youth academy, right up to like now, was there ever a point where it did just get too much and you thought, maybe this isn't for me? And if so, like, how did you get over that barrier?
I think when I signed for Portsmouth years ago, I did enjoy it. It was a bit. It was like the local team really wanted to do well, and then I think the time come when they decided to let me go, and I was still young. I think I was like 10 or 9 or 10 or something. They decided that they weren't going to extend my contract. I think when you're that young, you don't even understand. It was sort of just like, oh, I play for Pompey, and then they sort of just said, well, you're not going to. In my head, then they were like, well, you're not going to carry on with us, and I was like, okay, that's fine. I was young, so I was like, oh, it gives me more time to play out in the park with my friends and play football. Do you know what I mean? And just I really really enjoy it. And after that, I thought like I was really young, but I thought, oh, I've been released. Like it's never a good feeling when you're getting released from a club. And I also went to Chelsea when I was younger on a trial, and I think I played a big game. There was like 20 plus trialists, played one big game, and they picked 3 players from that game, and I was one of them players. So I ended up going on a 6-week trial, and I think it ended up being like 3 months. And when it comes to the end of it, there was 2 of us they had to pick from, and they ended up picking the other guy. So that was like another letdown after the Portsmouth thing. And then spent 2 years just playing Sunday League with my friends and really trying to just enjoy it as much as I can. And then eventually Chelsea then came back in, and I went on a 3-day trial instead of a 3-month trial, and done really well and ended up signing. And that was sort of it from there. But I think the 2 rejections on the way, the first one not so much from Portsmouth because I was young, but I think the rejection from Chelsea because I really thought I was going to get in. And I think it's quite different when you're actually in a club and then you get released to trying to get in a club and then eventually saying, oh well, you're not actually good enough. So I think getting released from the Chelsea one first was a tough one to take, because I really enjoyed going up there. It's such great facilities and stuff. So it was a bit of a long drive for my mum, so she might say differently, but no, it was that one personally was a tough one to take. But
And how did
got
you
more
get
time to play
over it?
out. I sort of just, like I said, I ended up playing Sunday League with my friends, but it wasn't like just willy-nilly. It was I ended up playing in Southampton actually, going back to the team that I was at before I went to Portsmouth, and they had loads of players that had been on trial at clubs and stuff like that. So we had a really really good team, and I just went back there, joined there, trained twice a week, played on the Sunday or the Saturday, I can't really remember, but I just really enjoyed it. I think I just got rejected from Chelsea, got rejected from Portsmouth, and in them setups it's quite intense. I think when you're young they try and drill down on the technical part of the game, the tactical part of the game, and you sort of go away from actually enjoying playing. So I think personally for me, when I joined back up with my friends in the Sunday League and stuff like that, it did help me, because I sort of took my eye off why I was actually playing. And the reason I was playing is because I love it and I think I'm good at it. And I think that got me back into the right frame of mind to then start thinking, okay, well, I need to get into an academy now. I need to start really pushing myself and playing with better players and stuff like that. So I'd say what got me through it was just going back to playing and enjoying my football.
Nice, very good. So let's go into something a little bit more positive then, and back to your Chelsea days. Like you didn't make many appearances. I know you made that one appearance, but coming on and replacing no one else other than Eden Hazard, like that must have been a point where you thought, "Cool, I have made it." I know you said there's different times you said you didn't, but was that sort of one of them?
Yeah, I think that was obviously a massive milestone. I think I look back now and I'm really proud that I eventually got to that point. Um, but I think after I made the appearance, didn't play so well. I think my nerves were just all over the place. I think we were winning 3-1. So I think I got a few touches, didn't go so well, but it's sort of not really about that. It's sort of the fact that you're there, you're on the pitch, I'm playing for Chelsea. It was such a surreal moment, and obviously my family all travelled up and everyone got to watch it, and it was massive. But after that, I think that was the last game of the season. So I then went on loan, and then from then it just sort of fizzled out, I think. So like I said, like I feel like looking back at it now, when I'm in a good place, I'm settled at Reading, I'm doing really well. I look back and think like bloody hell, like I really did manage to play for Chelsea when I was 18 and got to come on for Hazard. And I think a lot of people don't realise this actually. And this is probably a thing more that I take, that I feel like it's actually a bigger thing, because it was actually Ashley Cole's last ever game for Chelsea.
All right.
So yeah, I come on for Eden Hazard. I think Jose Mourinho's manager, but Ashley Cole was probably England's best ever left back ever, and I think that was his last ever game for Chelsea. And I think I just take away from that, like I played in Ashley Cole's last ever game for Chelsea, and it was like no one really sort of thought about that, and I think I take that away, take that as more positive from actually getting my debut, I think. But no, it was such a surreal moment for me and my family to finally make that step to the first team after all the hard work and everything. It was it was huge. And I've still got the shirt, I've still got program, I think, from the day. So yeah, and that was obviously my first appearance in the Premier League and my last. So hopefully if I manage to get there again, there'll be a few more.
Last until Reading get promoted, obviously.
Hopefully, of course, we're trying our best this season.
Well, this is going to be what I was moving on to, actually. Like, you had a few loan moves, but then you've sort of arrived at Reading and you're just flying at the moment. It's like, do you feel like you found a spiritual home maybe within Reading? It's something like 7 goals and 5 assists this season, but you've been such a regular for Reading. Do you know what's made you feel at home there?
I think a big factor of coming to Reading at the start was Jaap Stam just took over as manager. They were bringing in loads of new players. It was somewhere that I felt I could, because I played in the Championship originally with Brentford, and I had already played with Rotherham, so I knew that the Championship wasn't too big of a step for me. I felt like I'd played the season before really well with Brentford. I think I scored 7 goals for Brentford, and I was playing out of position. So I thought I could do well in this league. I didn't want to drop down a league because I played down a league before with Swindon. So I knew that the level in the League One and the level in the Championship was different, and I felt like the Championship level was one that I could definitely play at. So when I joined Reading, I felt like I could kick on now, and I think we obviously got to the playoff final that season and didn't manage to go up. And then I think I've had on and off seasons ever since. I think I've done really well when I've played, and I've also been hit with injury quite a lot. And another thing, my hometown is 45 to 50 minutes away. So for players that are travelling, that sign for Reading from up north, it's obviously a lot harder for them because when things aren't going so well, I could just drive down back home and sort of take my mind off stuff. So I think that was obviously a factor in coming to Reading too. So there was a lot of positive reasons why I should come, and I think overall my experience at Reading at the moment has been, I couldn't say anything bad.
Oh, brilliant. But you talk about obviously these different levels you've played at. You've also represented England at so many levels. It's like from under 16s all the way up to under 21s. How is it different playing for your national team and obviously wearing that crest compared to playing for Reading or Swindon or any of the other clubs you've played for?
It's huge. Obviously, when you first ever get your call up, I think I was 15 or 16. First ever get your call up, and then you play your first game. It's obviously huge. So I played a lot through the ranks. I think I've played in every age group all the way up to 21s. So yeah, it's massive. Obviously, it's a huge honor to play for your country. You understand that it is development level still. So maybe that, because especially when you go from playing in the championship to then under 21s for England, it's a big step. It's an honor to play, but you do realize that you're moving from actual professional level to under 21 level, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So when I was playing under 21s for Chelsea or under 18s for Chelsea, and then you go and play under 18s for England, it's like, wow, like this is all the best players in my age group all playing for one team. Playing for England under 21 is obviously a massive honour, but it becomes a little bit different once you've actually started playing men's football and professional football for life. When I was at Brentford and Reading, every game on the weekend is you have to try and get 3 points when playing like a friendly or something like that for it's your country and it's huge getting the call up. But the step isn't as much of a step when you're actually playing for like under 18s Chelsea or so and so, and then you make that step up and it's like, bloody hell, like I'm actually in a team with all the best players in England at my age group. So I've got to really try and show like the level that I'm at, and I loved every second of it. And I still think when it comes to the international breaks now, I'd love to go back and join and go to a camp and see the players that I played with and stuff like that. And obviously, great players that have gone on to do such good things.
Ah, brilliant. Well, before we go on and to move about talk about your education even, I told the students you were coming in. There's a couple of questions that they wanted me to put forward to you, if that's all right. If I can, I've narrowed it down quite a lot, but I've picked up sort of the 4 that I think were sort of good questions to put forward to you, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one was, how did you get noticed at a young age?
I was scouted for Portsmouth first, like I said, and I was also scouted for Chelsea. I also went in to train with Southampton, which I didn't mention. I only went there for like 2 or 3 training sessions, but that was when Chelsea came back in and asked me to come on a 3-day trial. So it was the same sort of time. So as soon as Chelsea come back in, I was like, yeah, that's fine. As soon as you offer me anything, I'm signing. And but I think when I was playing Sunday League, I think you never really know who's watching. And my agent, who's my agent now, I was playing with his son back then, and he always used to tell me, and my mum always used to tell me, that you never ever know who's watching. So when you go and play, don't play like you think, oh, this is a pointless game, no one's watching, I might as well just not run back, or I might as well just pass here and not shoot. Or I just felt like every time I stepped out onto the pitch when I was younger, there was a chance that a scout from any team would be watching. And eventually there obviously was scouts. I think there's scouts everywhere that you wouldn't even know. Sometimes they wear big jackets that have the crest on the front, but sometimes they just dress up in normal clothes and walk away with a notepad. So I think I would say to the kids now, just go out and play every game like there's 10 scouts watching.
Nice, great, good advice. And the next one is, who is the best player you've ever played with?
I get this one quite often, to be fair, and I think I could easily say a Chelsea player, because when I got on the pitch, there were so many great players on the pitch. But I only played for 6 minutes, so it's hard to actually say some of them players. I think I can name a few that were playing that day. Was Fernando Torres was playing up front. I think Petr Cech was playing in goal. I think Nemanja Matic was playing midfield. Obviously, Ashley Cole was playing. So there's so many players, and I think it's quite easy for me to just pick one of them because they're such great players. But actually play and think, wow, you're actually unbelievable. I played against Rooney when he was at United. So I didn't play with him, but on being on the same pitch as him when he was, and I think one that goes a bit amiss as well for United was Michael Carrick, who no one really seems to think is a great player, but actually playing against him was as an eye-opener with the way he moves the ball and how quickly he moves the ball and stuff like that. So played with obviously some greats at Chelsea, but I only played for 6 minutes, so it's a tough one for me to say that.
Fair enough. And then question 3 is, who was your footballing hero growing up?
I think I'd probably say there's 3, I think, and they all play in the same position because I've always been a central midfielder. So I think Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, and Zinedine Zidane. I think they all play in the same sort of position. I think Lampard and Gerrard are obviously the same type of player, and then Zidane's obviously I think are probably just a level above. And I think growing up watching Frank Lampard and Gerrard in the Premier League, being the best 2 midfielders in the Premier League for so long, Gerrard doing what he does, Frank Lampard getting into the box and scoring goals, especially when he was at Chelsea too. Obviously, when I was there, that was someone that I would look up to and try and emulate when I actually go onto the pitch. And then Zidane was obviously one of the best players in the world. So them 3 I would definitely pick out and think they're the ones that I tried to watch and learn from when I was younger. And yeah, they're definitely 3 of the players that I admired.
3 massive players there. And the last question then from our students would be, what advice, and I think you've already touched on this a little bit, but what advice would you give someone who wants to become a professional footballer?
Yeah, I think obviously I touched on it earlier. I think working hard and doing everything you possibly can to just become a better player. I think I relied on my ability on the ball when I was younger and sort of looked away from actually, I think I always worked hard on the pitch. I think it was more away from it, and maybe my diet every couple of seasons, or not looking after my muscles after a game. And I think that really took its toll on me a little bit when I first joined Reading, because I had such a great season, my first ever proper season in the Championship, that I thought, oh, well, I can do that again next season, when my body wasn't really ready for it. And then I ended up getting loads of injuries and loads of niggly ones. And I think that's just something that I would tell my younger self now, is just do everything you can possible to become injury-free and a better player, just all round. You can become a better player technically, but if physically you're not up to the standards that you need to be at, or up to the standards at least of your teammates, then you're going to look good. But when it actually comes to working hard and the games become tough, and you sort of maybe might die out a little bit in the game, and I think scouts will probably look at that. But for young players coming through now, I think you just have to work so much harder than your teammates and the opposition. And I think that will go a long way. Obviously, talent will come out eventually, but yeah, working hard and doing your best away from the pitch and on it, obviously, is the main thing I would tell myself now.
Brilliant. There was loads of other questions, but I know you're pushed for time, because I'd even like to ask, how could we convince you to come to Portsmouth now to get out of League One? But because I know you've got a meeting to get to. So we'll move on to your education, if that's all right. And just, even though we're a school, we appreciate not everything can be taught within the school. So do you put any of your success down to your school education?
I think a little bit, yeah. I think obviously when I was at Chelsea, we had to do schoolwork because I was still at school. So my school were really good with letting me go, letting me have a couple of days off to go and train, but they would always give me work to take with me. So I was never behind on my schoolwork, and they helped massively with that. And if I ever had a problem at school, they would always contact Chelsea, and then Chelsea would then go back to them. There's so many people behind the scenes that sort of help young players, and I think, yeah, school really did help because I wasn't behind on my work, and I know if I'm not playing so well at football, I'll go to school and I'll be like, oh, like I just want to go and play, but then you just have to do your work, and then when you're away from school, you sort of forget about it. But they gave me work to do when I was away, and Chelsea obviously set a time in the day where you actually do have to sit down and do all your schoolwork. So for them to let me have 2 days off to train and then eventually 3 days off to train was massive.
Nice, that's really good. But do you feel like any of your qualifications or anything you learned within the classroom assisted that as well? Obviously, the school being flexible was great, but do you think any of the content you took away from school and applied that to your career?
Yeah, I think there was, because I like this. I do a lot of interviews, and I do a lot of stuff that I would have had to learn at school. There was a lot of classes that I enjoyed, and yeah, I think I learned so much. I think just the little things I think that kids would learn now, just knowing how to take, especially interviews and stuff, and talking on camera, is loads of stuff that I would have been nervous to do if I hadn't learned that at school. I enjoyed my classroom. I wasn't really the loudest, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed most of the classes that I was in. I mean, there's obviously some classes that don't go as well as others, and I think that sport is obviously a massive one for me. So to do sport was huge, and yeah, and that's what I learned a lot at school, and took that obviously away to Chelsea with me too.
Now, unfortunately, that's where the interview had to cut off. John had to go to a meeting at 10:30 and he couldn't be late. So unfortunately, he did have to leave us. But he did message me later and he gave me a message that he wanted to pass on to the students for that all-important question I asked at the end of every interview. What advice would you pass on to students currently in school? And this was John's message to all students in school today. The best advice I could give the kids at school today would be work as hard as possible when you're at school. Because no matter what you want to do after school, whether it's a sports person or anything like that, having good grades and a good education behind you will always help if them career choices don't plan out. Then the grades and everything you learn while you're at school can help you figure out what you'd want to do in the next part of your life. I think that's a fantastic bit of advice from John, and it was fantastic having him on our podcast. That is all for today. And once again, if you do like what you hear, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and for any more information, do visit our website. Have a fantastic day.